Honestly, how are we a week from Christmas? Like, how did that happen? With that in mind, as you get a window into my scattershot brain, welcome to another edition of Thinking Out Loud. Thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing, whatever it is you do with it that ends in an ing. We appreciate you being here. My name is Andrew Siciliano with week 16 in the rearview mirror. No, that was week 15. I'm ahead of myself. We have 3 more weeks left, 16, 17, and 18. And what if I told you that by the time we get to Christmas, which is Wednesday the 25th, this just in, breaking news, we may have the entire AFC field set. As a matter of fact, on Monday night, the entire AFC field, by the time week 15, 16 is over, might be done. We just don't know where the seeds will fall. A lot could change. Kansas City, Buffalo, whatever. But you might know the entire field in the last 2 weeks are for seeding only. Matter of fact, we could get done Monday night, and we might know 12 of the 14 playoff teams. And the last 2 weeks are for 2 spots in the NFC and rearranging deck chairs for seeding. That's kind of sort of what it's come to. Again, thank you for being here. We have a lot to unpack from a very, very, very busy week with a couple of would-be Super Bowl previews. Maybe. One which went to the home team, one which went to the road team. And we could have a quarterback change coming up, not just in Tennessee or in Cleveland, but in Atlanta. Let's start with that, Sam Patesh, because we had 2 games on Monday night that honestly neither deserved a primetime window. And I'm a bit confounded as to why we needed 2 games on Monday night in week 15. I am one of those that does not like the Monday night doubleheader. I don't think it works. I think 2 things can be true. We love football, but we don't need 2 games on Monday night. They are both true. We need more good games on Sunday, like we have this past week in the 4 p.m. Eastern time window. And we don't need back-to-back bad games on a Monday. Now, when you schedule them, you don't know they're going to be bad. But other than the white uniforms and Caleb Williams and the fact that there was some intrigue with Kirk Cousins, did you really want to watch either of those games on Monday night?
On paper, no. And then as they played out, not any better.
And it didn't make it better.
And I thought I was with you in regards to the Monday night doubleheader. And then I realized I enjoy, and maybe this credit to you, Andrew, in some way, the red zone. I've so enjoyed when games overlap. I've enjoyed being able to decipher and pay attention to multiple things at once. And it's sort of what I consider my NFL brain. And so I'd rather on Monday have 2 simultaneous than one, especially to what you said in regards to one of the games being potentially not great. Maybe the other one's okay. This past Monday night didn't give us any of that. So I'm with you. I'm also with you on the idea that 2 things can be true. Love football. Don't need more nights. I at first thought Thursday night football was too much. I thought sacred days of football were good. And then it just became that Thursday and Sunday and Monday felt initially like a lot. But in regards to last night, certainly both of those games didn't need it. So Sunday's the place for great games. And I'm into that.
Bad scheduling could happen, and when it wasn't bad scheduling, it's when you did the schedule in May. Both of these games looked attractive, and they both had some value. The Vikings are still fighting for the top of the NFC North. They're a playoff team. They're exciting. They're fun. They're wearing white after Labor Day. They're cool. Okay, I get it. The Falcons and the Raiders, you would hope that the Raiders would have been better when you scheduled this months ago. You couldn't really flex out of it. For a litany of reasons, everyone says, well, flex, get me a better game. Well, look at the schedule. There's only so many options and teams are tied down, their network commitments and things like that. It isn't as easy to flex everything as the NFL obviously waited until the very last minute, which is today, the Tuesday of week 16, to figure out the week 17 schedule to flex a new game into Sunday night. Browns and Dolphins are out. Falcons and Commanders are in. And then to set the schedule for the 3 games on Saturday on NFL Network, they waited until the very last minute, actually, the very last day. 12 days advance notice is what you needed to set that schedule. It's hard to rearrange everything when sometimes there aren't great options. So for me, Monday night, and you mentioned the red zone. People love the red zone They love the Red Zone channel, what we did on DirecTV, because we did it for you. Now, people like to sit on their couch and tell us that we should have gone to this game rather than that game and whatever. Who cares, right? Everyone's the armchair quarterback or the armchair remote control guy. But they want you to do the work, and we did it well. They don't want to do the work on a Monday night. Nobody does. The kids are doing their homework. It's Monday, so everyone's cranky because everyone had to go back to work and go back to school. You've got all the anxiety of all the things you have to do this coming week. It's a week before the holidays as well, a week before Christmas. There's shopping. There's bad weather. It gets dark too early. People can't drive in the dark. Like all these things about the winter and stress. The stress of watching 2 games on a Monday night where I have to go back and forth in December. I don't think most people want it. When you throw in the fact that neither of these games turned out to be really must-see TV, it's just not a great setup. And I also think as we get towards the first weekend of the new CFP, the 12-team college football playoff, there is so much football this weekend. We have playoff games Friday. Notre Dame, Indiana on Friday. Amazing. You got the great schedule coming up on Saturday with 2 very good NFL games opposite. This was the Monday night in which we didn't need a doubleheader.
2 points there.
My 2 cents as somebody who is still under the NFL umbrella working for one of the 32.
Yeah. Had the doubleheader been Bills, Lions, and Steelers, Eagles, okay, different story, right? I mean,
it actually would have been bad. It would have
because
been
then you wouldn't, right? Because then you couldn't concentrate on just the one that you wanted to, right?
And then both of those games deserve their own platform,
and they probably deserve their own window. But again, considering it was these games, and also to your point, Monday Night Football probably figured one thing out in regards to having 2 options. The Peyton Eli thing, along with your traditional broadcast, that's nice. I mean, that's interesting, but to have 2 separate games unnecessary. The 2 options of what to watch, perhaps, especially when you throw Simpsons, Lisa Simpson running into the end zone a couple of weeks ago as well. Maybe that's fun. The 2 games, maybe you're right. You might have convinced me over the span of 45 seconds that the 2 on Monday is just let it be its thing, let it be exciting, and let it just be that.
I don't mind 2 games on Monday night, week 1. Extend the festival and the fun and the frivolity of the opening week, but give me an East Coast and a West Coast, not simultaneous. I personally don't want it nor need it, especially coming off a Sunday in which you did have the Steeler-Eagle game and the Lions-Bills game, or the Bills-Lions game, whatever, road team first, at the same time. So we just had that great late window. Fantastic late window. Anyway, I digress. They scheduled it. The games happened. Let's talk about what happened in the games. Number 1, Caleb Williams was slumped over, and he looked defeated. We'll get to that later. Let's get to Kirk Cousins, because as we tape this on Tuesday afternoon, the Falcons won. Okay, they stayed alive. I beg your pardon, in the NFC South, right? The sky is not falling, but they survived with, once again, a very mediocre, middling, let's just call it what it was, average and poor performance from their quarterback. The Falcons got the win to go to 7-7. They're behind the Bucs at 8-6. They also swept the Bucs. So all they have to do is get even with the Bucs, and they win the division. Nobody's getting in from that division as a wild card. At least personally, I don't think it's going to happen. Could it maybe sort of happen? I mean, Atlanta is 7-7, but right now Washington is 9-5. It would take a colossal collapse. And the Commanders and the Falcons do play coming up on a Sunday night in 2 weeks, but it would take a colossal collapse there. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I told you that I think it's time for Michael Penix. I'm going to tell you definitively right now, it is time for Michael Penix. I like Kirk Cousins. I actually supported the contract. I thought it was a good thing. You pair him with Zach Robinson, system fit, it's going to work. Raheem Morris is going to turn the defense around. They're going to run the football. It hasn't worked, and Kirk Cousins simply hasn't played well. He was 11 of 17 on Monday night against the Raiders without Max Crosby. He threw for 112 yards and had a passer rating. And I don't care about passer rating, but when it's consistently low, it does tell you a story that's worth hearing. A passer rating of 78.6. Fewest passing yards they've had in a game the entire season. He finally did throw a first quarter touchdown, which was good. Drake London, little pump fake and a ball down the sideline. They had gone 17 straight quarters without throwing a touchdown. Michael Penix is waiting in the wings. And this week, let's look at the schedule. They get the Giants at home in Atlanta to an audience that maybe includes Atlanta and New York. And that's it. Nobody else is going to see this game. Throw Mike Penix in there and let him play. Now, if you do it, it's over for Kirk Cousins. You can't this year put the genie back in the bottle. So you're going to have to make the decision that we're benching him, and that means we're heading into an offseason with a massive salary cap anvil on our shoulder, on our head, whatever bad analogy you want. But you get the Giants, you get that game at the Commanders now on Sunday night, and then you get Carolina. It's a winnable game. I am telling you, there is a chance you can steal this division if you give the ball to Mike Penix. Now, he might also fail miserably. He's a rookie quarterback, and you're throwing into a high-leverage situation. It's not what you thought of. But look what he did at Indiana. Look what he did at Washington. All right? He has thrived in these situations. It is time to pull the plug, knowing that when you do it, you open yourself up to an off season of how do we get out of this contract? How do we eat this dead cap? How do we move forward? But if you're honest with yourself in Atlanta, you probably know that conversation is happening regardless. Now, could Kirk Cousins lead you to 3 victories down the stretch and everything goes well in the postseason? Absolutely. He deserves to work his way out of it. But you've been giving him this chance to work his way out of it for a long time now. This is still the guy that threw for 500 yards when they beat the Bucs in Atlanta. That was fantastic. He had it in him. He still does, I think, have it in him. But when Dan Orlovsky, who called the game, goes on TV the next day and says he's not seeing it, he doesn't have confidence. Wait, Kirk Cousins not seeing it, doesn't have the confidence? I don't know. I don't know what to do except play Michael Penix and start the future. The future should be now.
When he signed the contract, you said it felt right. Although the number felt humongous at 180 million. It sounded
it's not a really like 180 million.
Exactly. And we're used to quarterbacks making a tremendous amount of money. Kirk Cousins, when they drafted Penix number 9, I said to myself and to a few other people, is Kirk Cousins the most underappreciated quarterback by his own team consistently? I mean, he's drafted by Washington. The year he's drafted, he's the second drafted quarterback that they were considering, right? With RG3, obviously. There's that. Then that was absolutely ridiculous that he's drafted there and he gets the chance that he does, and yet still he's franchise tagged not once, but twice by Washington. Then Minnesota, he's considered the guy who can't win a playoff game.
Because he never did.
But when he went to Minnesota, my point is, goes to Minnesota, wins a playoff game.
Yeah.
Wins a playoff game with Minnesota, and yet is still considered maybe not the guy of the future for the Vikings, and now lands the massive contract with Atlanta. And immediately upon signing that contract in that draft, Penix is drafted number 9. So right there, it feels like here he is again. Washington, you're our second best rookie quarterback, drafted quarterback option. Minnesota, you won a playoff game for us, but we're looking for more. Sorry. And by the way, there he was one of the top QBs in Minnesota. He had Pro Bowl seasons in Minnesota. I understand Pro Bowl doesn't necessarily mean what it used to, but in Minnesota, he had shown enough. And Atlanta at $180 million says Penix number 9. We're taking you there. I mean,
it's not a $180 million contract. I mean, that is, I hate the phrase, that is fake news.
Okay.
It's NFL
Okay.
contracts are never what they seem. If you want the real number for Kirk Cousins, and then this number is a I'm not mad, I'm impressed number. And this number is also a retort to you think he underappreciated. He has not been underappreciated. Kirk Cousins has masterfully, with his agent Mike McCarthy, played the contract game to each of their credit and to his credit on the field as well for earning it. What do you think his career cash earnings, not funny money, actual good hard American currency paid on direct deposit? What do you think his career earnings are? And again, I'm not mad. I'm impressed.
Okay. So we're going to go to
Actual cash paid.
Washington, Minnesota. Cash paid money on Cousins has got to be, are we talking 180 million? Let's say 300 million.
294 million.
Pretty good guess.
Dollars.
Pretty good guess.
Okay.
Pretty good guess.
He's not underappreciated. He's well compensated.
Yes, that's fine. And again,
he hasn't played well this year. Here's what the Falcons have next year. Okay.
This is
they
fine.
have a $40 million cap hit, and they owe him cash breakdown next year. They owe him cash 27.5 guaranteed. Now,
okay,
if you want to move on, the cap hit next year is, I believe, 82 million.
Okay.
90, whatever it is. You're going to have to, much like the Broncos have an $84 million dead cap. The Cleveland Browns, if they, and I'm not saying they will, they have the Deshaun Watson contract as well. So you always have to consider the dead cap. Kirk Cousins with the Falcons, there's a massive dead cap hit. But let me ask you this. Do you think he's back next year as their quarterback?
Well, much like everything that is discussed on shows week by week, it's in a vacuum, because you mentioned the most important thing. Win 3 games, win the division, different story, right? In other words, if Penix doesn't get the job and Cousins does what he's done numerous times in his career, which is at the moment you think the least of Kirk Cousins, he has found a way to do the most. He's done it numerous times. He has shown an ability. I can't win on primetime. He has a huge game on primetime. He can't win a playoff game. He wins a playoff game that he wasn't necessarily supposed to against the Saints. He's shown an ability to do that numerous times. Here he is back against the wall in this situation with Atlanta. He has beaten Tampa twice. It could happen. He could win the division. And if that happens, then yes, he's the quarterback next season. Although we know Penix is going to get it more in the way that Drake May got on the field this year. You'd probably see Penix. You're going to see Penix eventually next season. So I guess at that price, Andrew, I'll answer your question simplest. No.
Michael Penix Jr. will open, barring injury, week 1 as the starting quarterback next year for the Falcons of Atlanta. So if it's inevitable, make it immediate. That's how I feel. And again, I love Kirk Cousins. I do think he's done enough in his career. He's earned the right to play his way out of this. I also think that you have a chance to steal the division, win a division. Like, that means something. That is a home playoff game. That means something. And I think you can do that if you go to Kirk Cousins. Sam, have we put up the quote yet from Raheem Morris? Let's do that if we can. So if we haven't done this already, I apologize. This is Josh Kendall, who covers the Falcons for The Athletic. Does a great job. This is Tuesday after the Falcons got back home. So they win a game. They hop on a red eye. They fly back to Atlanta. Everyone short week. You're groggy in the building, but the coach does a next day presser. He was asked, who's your quarterback next week? And he said, we just got back. This is Raheem Morris. We still have to go through that process. All things will happen over the course of the week. We didn't play well enough at the quarterback position. What? It's real easy to say, Kirk Cousins, guys, is still our starting quarterback. This means if they really have to go into a room to discuss it, not coaches, coordinators, look, coaching staffs discuss things all the time. Coaches, head coaches, that is, GMs, Terry Fontenot in this sense, in this case, talk about things all the time. And maybe they do have to go in and crunch the numbers like you and I just did and try to figure out, is this truly worth it? But it's the old, if you're thinking about retiring, you're already retired. If you're thinking about benching him, chances are he is already benched. Coaches shut that down pretty quickly if they know they're not benching the other guy. So anyway, that's that. As for the game on Sunday in Detroit, so Sam, full disclosure, I didn't see really the entire first half, saw some of the second quarter. I'm trying to get from Cleveland back to Los Angeles. No direct flights at that point of the night after the Chiefs had beaten the Browns, and I was out of there. So I was flying through Detroit and trying to run from one gate to the other. Actually, I had some time, stopped and got something to eat, but all throughout the Detroit airport, which is actually bigger than the city of Detroit. It's that huge. They have these massive monitors like every 3-4 gates with the game on. Kind of a cool scene because there are all these people in the Detroit airport wearing Lions gear, yet they clearly hadn't gone to the game because the game's being played, right? So they're wearing their Lions gear because they've won 10, 11 games in a row and they're just Lions fans. That's cool. I thought that was really cool. And they're all kind of on the people mover, not paying attention. As I said a couple of weeks ago, just move, get out of my way in the airport. It wasn't happening in Detroit, but I wasn't upset about it because they're on the people mover and they're just, with their big winter jackets looking up at the wall. It's kind of cool. Anyway, the Lions lost. And everyone wants to criticize Dan Campbell because, well, he did the unthinkable with 12 minutes remaining. He called for the onside kick. You really don't get onside kicks these days. It's almost impossible for multiple reasons. Number one, they changed the formation and the run-up a couple of years ago. Number two, you now have to declare that you're going to go for the onside kick. Surprise. Now, if there's only 12 seconds left in a game, everyone knows you're going to onside kicks. Whatever. It's may the best man win. It's the receiving team. This was 12 minutes left in the game. So gone is the Sean Payton opening up the third quarter of the Super Bowl in Miami against the Colts sneak attack onside kick. That's over. You can't do it. You now have to declare it. Hey, everybody, onside kick. So that's what Dan Campbell did with 12 minutes to go, and it didn't work. And from that point on, the Bills punched him in the mouth again and scored again, and Josh Allen won the MVP again, and the Lions lost. Dan Campbell went on the radio Tuesday in Detroit and used some colorful language, a couple of F-bombs, and said, he's going to do it again, and we're going to fight, and we needed this loss, and we're going to recover. Okay, that was all great. Dan Campbell was getting hammered on Twitter. Can't believe he did the onside kick with 12 minutes remaining. Nance and Romo also questioned aloud. And by the way, I would have questioned it aloud as well if I was calling that game. I wouldn't have done it until you stop and you think. And you realize, as we've pointed out here multiple times over the last month, the Lions, all the pieces are in pieces on the defensive side of the ball. Aleem McNeil, Carlton Davis, 2 more season-ending injuries on the defensive side of the ball. They cannot stop anybody. They can't. Not that they don't have a talented roster. They do. It's just that none of the talent on the defensive side of the ball is still there. And it comes to the point, you get to the point where the Lions aren't the Lions anymore defensively. They're just guys wearing Lions uniforms. Now, next man up, part of the game. But when the next man up is the next man up from the next man up, then you run into issues. Dan Campbell knows that the only way right now to beat teams is to outscore them. And that if he kicked the ball to Josh Allen was going to score again. So he said, to heck with it. I've got to get bold. And he did. And it backfired. Like it backfired, by the way, in the NFC Championship game last year. The Lions are here in part because of Dan Campbell's bold moves. So don't be surprised when he makes more bold moves because he has to in this case. I don't think that the Lions are going to make the Super Bowl anymore. I told you months ago, I would be absolutely stunned if they didn't make it. They will represent the NFC, I said. Book your tickets now to New Orleans. I don't think that anymore because I don't think their defense can stay together. Not like as a team, not like locker room, not like emotion and all that. Of course they will. Aaron Glenn's a good coach. Dan Campbell's a good coach. It's just all the pieces are in pieces. And I'm stealing that from the Chicago Sun-Times early in the 1996 season when yours truly was a 22-year-old reporter covering the Bears, and Dave Wannstedt's 96 team, which had such high hopes after the 95, huge offensive output with Eric Kramer and Jeff Graham and Raymond Harris and that whole team and Curtis Conway. Everybody got injured early in 96, and the Chicago Sun-Times on the back page, all the pieces are in pieces. And then you add David Montgomery on the offensive side. That is a big deal. Sonic and Knuckles, right, with the two backs. And I only got one of them. You got Jahmyr Gibbs, who's a heck of a back. Jared Goff is going to have to outscore teams for them to do this. I have faith in him. I truly do. He is still in the MVP conversation, but I do think Josh Allen won it. Dan Campbell is going to have to win, Sam, every gamble. Let's make a Vegas analogy here. He's going to have to go on a heater. He's going to have to split tens. He's going to have to do all the other stuff that makes the people at the table next to you angry. Like, how are you doing that, you moron? Well, he's got to do it because he's got to bet big and just get lucky.
So, admittedly, on Sunday, volume on the Steelers at Eagles game simultaneous to Lions and Bills at Lions, and Lions in that game. And as you were running through the airport, you certainly saw it. Seemingly the game is out of reach. Lions crawl back closer. They had sort of an answer to the game getting out of hand. There. Yeah, right. I mean, in other words, they had an answer to the game getting out of hand, right? The moments when you thought it was done, 3rd and 16, we're throwing 66-yard touchdown passes to Amon-Ra St. Brown to get back into the game. So at 10 points, the game actually felt most feasible in that moment with the 12 minutes to go, et cetera. It feels, oh, wow, here's the Lions getting back. In the moment on Sunday, admittedly, and part of it, people don't understand how affected they are, I'm sure, by what broadcasters say. So the surprise
good point.
Of Nance and Romo,
influence
it does, right? Subtly, and not on purpose, right? I don't think an announcer is trying to. To your point, there is real surprise there. Oh, wow, 12 minutes to go. He's going for an onside kick.
I value their opinion, especially that crew.
For sure.
Most everyone at home does as well.
Exactly. So when you start, at home, you don't even realize you're being influenced. You're hearing now, oh, wow, Nance and Romo think this is odd. Okay. Now, then that means the result is so crucial right there, right? Because in that moment, now everyone's having doubt. Whoever thought in the moment, oh, this is cool, now is hearing Romo and Nance say, I wonder about that. I wonder. And then, of course, the result being Mac Hollins running in the other direction to the 5-yard line.
At least he had shoes on.
Right. Yes. Because no one was there. Right. Unlike in the snow when he shows up with no shoes, he's running with his shoes on to the 5-yard line. And the next play is a touch. The next play is in the end zone. So it's 7 points in a flash of an eye. And it feels, oh, wow, wrong. This, though, is a perfect example of feeling wrong in the moment and sleeping on it and saying, you know what? What else was going to happen? What were the options there? And instead of questioning Dan Campbell, I you know what? I'm conflicted on the onside kick overall. And we don't have to go long down this path, but it does bring up, and it has brought up a lot of debate. The onside kick, as much as you may think Dan Campbell made the wrong move, does it start to bring up the debate of, oh, is there something wrong with the onside kick? Is there something we could do to make the onside kick more interesting? As you said, the declaration,
you could do it outside the fourth quarter, and you don't have to declare it.
And the declaring part is just, but of course, because of the new alignment of the kicks, there's no other way to do it. But on the other side of that, as many times as I said, 3 out of 44 is the amount of kicks that have been recovered onside this season. I mean, it's the lowest number that it's ever been. But isn't necessarily the job of the league to make it easier for teams that are losing games to get back in it? In other words, one team is outplaying the other one, right? Well, I mean, is the design of the game supposed to be, how do we make it easier for the team that is performing worse today to to get back into the game. Do you follow me at all on that at all?
I don't follow you at all. They changed it for one reason only: health and safety. Period. Full stop.
Fine.
That's the only reason. The kickoff rules before they went to this new dynamic kickoff, they changed this a couple of years ago, where they changed the running start. And look, it's health and safety. Period. And I think it will change next year. It'll just be same dynamic kickoff, although they're going to bring the kick out, the touchback out to the 35 in all likelihood. And I do think that they will allow any team at any time to go onside. It doesn't have to be in the fourth quarter only. I think that's what they'll change.
And that will probably make a difference. And you're talking about percentages where the kicks are being recovered now at a 4% clip, and maybe you could raise that to 12%, and that could be more interesting. But it doesn't necessarily feel to me, in other words, the Bills are the better team on that day. The Bills are just the better team on that day, whether it's injuries, whether it's anything else. The Bills are better. Why does it have to be now? Why do we have to create this outside opportunity for the Lions to get better at a different type of game?
Well, because it's been part of the game for 105 years.
But the onside kick, I guess it just comes down to
part of the game.
The onside kick, the way it used to be, was
create it, but
true. I'll simply say Dan Campbell has created this culture of we do it different. This goes along with that. And so after having a night to sleep on it, it's something I like. And in the moment, I hated it because I thought the Lions offense was simply good enough to get back in that game, chipping away down 10 traditionally, as opposed to doing it with the onside kick in the moment.
They just needed to get stops, and there's nobody left on their defense to get stops. Like, I feel bad for Liam McNeil. He comes back, he blows his knee out. Carlton Davis having a really good year. He too is hurt. David Montgomery, although did push back Tuesday, said, I'm not on IR yet. I'm telling you, there's a chance, paraphrasing. I hope he gets back, but the Lions would have to go far. Aiden Hutchinson, by the way, went on the Taylor Lautner podcast. He's dreamy. Taylor Lautner, big Lions fan, and said, yep, make it to the Super Bowl. I think I can make it back. So there's that. Big MVP conversation in that game as well. I think Josh Allen is going to win the MVP. I think the person that could steal it from him isn't Jared Goff. I think it's Saquon Barkley, even though that no running back has won it since 2012 when Adrian Peterson did it. 2,000-yard season for the Vikings in his prime. But let me say this about the MVP. And this is not a very 2024 nor soon to be 2025 opinion here, where everything has to be a hot take and everything has to be a screaming opinion on the television. Although I am quite loud right now in a guest bedroom. Everyone has to pound the table and call the other person an idiot that they don't agree with their opinion. You have to have the hot take. Both Josh Allen, Jared Goff, and you know what? Throw in Saquon Barkley. All three of them deserve the MVP. There's no wrong answer. There really isn't. I'd vote for Josh Allen right now. But considering everything we just went through, listing and showing you on the screen there, the Lions' injuries on the defensive side of the ball, couldn't one argue that Jared Goff deserves it just as much, if not more? All things being equal with the numbers, they're both putting up fantastic numbers. Who cares if one's got a few more touchdowns or the other's got a few more yards? One runs more than the other. The Lions defense has fallen apart, at least roster-wise, and Jared Goff is outscoring the other team every week. Josh Allen's doing that as well. He did it. Well, he couldn't do it in L.A. Matthew Stafford outscored Josh Allen that day, but Allen came pretty darn close with 6 touchdowns. There is no wrong answer. It is okay to say both deserve it. Saquon as well. It's okay to say I'm not going to get angry regardless of which one wins it. If I had to vote right now, and I don't, I would vote for Josh Allen. I would. I'd probably vote for Saquon second and Jared Goff third. But if you told me that your ballot was Jared Goff, Josh Allen, Saquon, or Saquon, Josh Allen, Jared Goff, I would be okay with that. This is one of them where there's truly no wrong answer. I think Ashton Genty If he had won the Heisman, I would have said, okay. I saw him in person this year. I thought he was phenomenal. Every single team faces Boise State with Maddox Madsen at quarterback and Dirk Cutter calling plays, knowing that they absolutely, unequivocally have to stop Ashton Genty. Nobody's done it. He had 100 yards in every single game when you know he's getting the ball. He had over 2,000 yards rushing. After going for 200 week one, Oregon, the number one team of the nation, knew they had to stop Ashton Genty. He ran for 190. He's that good. Travis Hunter, though, is special because he plays both sides. He could be a first-round pick as a corner and a first-round pick as a wide receiver. Give him the Heisman. He deserved it. It was a great moment. I, too, don't know Lil Wayne's music. Good for him. But if Genty won, would I be screaming and yelling? No. They both deserve the award. And that's the thing about award season. I think award season, and the players truly do love the awards. Who doesn't love to win a nice shiny trophy, have it attached to your name and everything that brings the rest of your career? I think it's taken on a new life in the screaming head industry in which we now live and work. I just think this is one of them, Sam, where it's okay to pick any of the three.
Let me be a screaming head for you. You've said something that most people won't admit. That is, if it's not your favorite player or team being robbed of the award, MVP doesn't elicit a ton of emotion. It doesn't. It just doesn't have to. It can be okay, right? I mean, we're saying that this performance was tremendous. In other words, cheer bravo. That should almost be the end of it. You know, of course, we can remember the year that Shaq did not win the unanimous MVP because one vote went in the wrong direction, right? I mean, that was sort of worthy of it at the time. How could it not be unanimous in that season when it was so obvious? And yes, those things happen. But I'll be the screaming head on a couple of things because I can't quiet the voices in my head. Jared Goff threw 5 touchdowns in this game against Josh Allen. Nearly threw for 500 yards. And I do think had he gotten 6 more yards, he was at 494. This would have been an easier argument, and 6 yards shouldn't be the difference.
6 yards don't mean a thing.
They don't, right? And Jameis nearly had 500 this season.
I'm sure
also.
He had 6 yards called back.
There you go. And Cousins obviously has the game with 500. Jameis almost had one with 500. But so had Goff had the 500, it would just be a stamp on this game. So despite the onside kick, the Lions are that close to sticking with the Bills in a game in which they've lost 3 players in the game, or was it 4 players that they ended up losing in the game on top of a season where they've already been decimated by injury, including Aiden Hutchinson, obviously. And yet they're toe-to-toe with the Bills. 5 touchdown passes, 494 for Goff. I just want to hold on tight to the idea that Goff is very well the MVP. And because you love to remind us all that the season doesn't end today, it's going to matter. If the Lions hold on, and they'll have to hold on tight now to that 1 seed. If the Lions truly are the 1 seed, and let's just say that the Bills, which they aren't right now, the 1 seed, and let's say the Bills don't get the 1 seed, I really think if Goff now without Montgomery leads the Lions to the 1 seed, including a very impressive, they'll have to beat the Vikings in week 18, and that'll be likely a shootout with a guy who's also had a very special season in Sam Darnold. Goff's still got a shot. He's still got a shot at it. It could very well happen. These next 3 weeks are going to play a factor. And Goff, even in a season where he's had a game where he throws for 5 interceptions, and they found a way to win that game against Houston, Goff's just been spectacular.
They both have. And I made that point as well that
yes,
maybe Jared Goff does deserve it because everything has fallen apart around him and he has elevated that team. I by the way, I think both number 1 seeds are going to flip.
That's okay. And probably injury would play a part in both, right?
Sure. And you could do the math on the Lions and the Eagles. I have no clue. I haven't paid enough attention.
Can I just say one thing quickly? I've spent way too much time on that, and it comes down to strength of victory, and it's really painful. And I thought it was going to be easier.
You can't figure it out now. Okay. In the AFC, I just saw the Chiefs in person. It's the slowest offense I've ever seen in my entire life on a winning team, other than Xavier Worthy, who found his way into the end zone. But Patrick Mahomes practices the dark arts. He is, and I mean that as a compliment. He is a shape-shifting sorcerer, and I said that on the air on Sunday. I don't know how he does it, but he gets away with it every time. You're dragging him down, and he flicks it behind his back or through his legs or over his head, and he somehow finds DeAndre Hopkins, who can't separate. Can't. Travis Kelce, love him. He obviously is slowed down. Juju Smith-Schuster clearly does not have the speed he did as a young man in Pittsburgh. It's a slow team, but Steve Spagnuolo's dialing up the blitzes, and he's got their 35% blitz rate, and they're winning. But look at the schedule, if Mahomes can't play this week, and he's found a way to always battle through these high ankle sprains, eventually he's going to have to sit. The Bills' schedule is far easier than the Chiefs. The Bills go through 3-1 or 3-0. Kansas City goes 1-2. I'm telling you, there's a chance, and a good one, that it flips and home field goes to Buffalo. And the Lions, again, same thing. A lot of injuries. The Eagles can steal it. But that's assuming here in the AFC that Mahomes actually misses a game, which usually he does not.
And again, Wentz, we don't know much. I'll say this much. Wentz in a pinch, Wentz as a backup quarterback has actually been better than the stints in Washington and Indianapolis, where he was tabbed the starter after Philadelphia. He's been
won
good
a game
in
week 18 last year for the Rams.
For the Rams, exactly. And it could happen. And obviously with Andy Reid, and a backup quarterback, I could see that. I do find it quite ironic. What if Carson Wentz ends up being the backup quarterback to do something for a Super Bowl winning team, as opposed to the other way around in 2017? But one other name I just want to throw in, only because we didn't mention it, and if you go through the numbers, it's still very much alive. The MVP conversation, Saquon, Goff, Josh Allen, which we said, Lamar Jackson numbers-wise is still very much leading in categories. I wanted to say Goff is second to only Tua in regards to completion percentage.
Lamar
so another
Jackson
one to throw out there.
5 touchdowns. You're right.
Lamar Jackson threw 5. Lamar Jackson only has 3 interceptions on the season. And my cousin, Michael, who is a huge fan and loves to consume social media, there is a great mashup of the Lamar interceptions this season, by the way. All of them were in receivers' baskets. I mean, it was stolen away by defenders. I mean, really just not, in other words, the definition of not my fault interception. Lamar Jackson with only 3 interceptions is well worth it and leading in most categories. One of them you don't care at all about, of course, passer rating. He's on top in that as well. Lamar Jackson, and this against Josh Allen. One ding on the Josh Allen MVP debate. The 35-10 loss to the Ravens in a game in which Lamar had 3 touchdowns. It's worth noting, as you well know, as you mentioned, Genty, the head-to-head Heisman thing plays a factor a lot when you get these head-to-head games. There's a Lamar and Josh Allen game in which Lamar was very much on the right side of that, and Josh Allen wasn't in any way. Didn't have a touchdown in that game. It's worth it. And I get air of recency the later in the season goes. He's got the game with the 6 touchdowns against the Rams, followed up by this incredible performance against the Lions. And he has the 2 most impressive wins on the season. To beat the Chiefs and the Lions at this point, no one's got a resume like that. So that's the Josh Allen. But I lean heavily. I don't know why I want the Goff thing so bad, but I just thought, yeah, that's a loss. But Goff threw 5 touchdowns and more yardage than Josh Allen in that game. Whatever. There it is.
We agree. If you take Jared Goff off the Lions and put Hendon Hooker in, if you take Josh Allen off the Bills and put Mitch Trubisky in, or if you take Lamar Jackson off the Ravens and put, and I bet America doesn't even know who the backup quarterback is, Josh Johnson, former Sacramento Mountain Lion, in, none of these teams are what they are with the other 3 guys. They all deserve it. You could argue that the Eagles are the one that is still in the playoffs without Saquon. But again, then we're going to positional value. Saquon's been amazing. He deserves to be in this conversation. A conversation that right now, after 44 minutes, is now going to wrap. Happy holidays to each and every one of you. Travel dependent. We shall be back next week after week 16, maybe even later in this week ahead of week 16 as well. Sam, happy holidays to you. Everyone out there, happy holidays. And thank you for listening, watching, sharing, publishing, whatever it is you do with this show. This is Thinking Out Loud. My name is Andrew Siciliano. So long, everybody.